strategy. We talked about system dynamics, plotting out a system to solve the problem. So you may have other systemic problems that we just talked about other than the 7 that we talked about now. Let's map out, let's show you a glimpse of a system of an event-oriented church. Now we've noticed in the churches that we studied around the world, there are 2 big differences. There's event-oriented and there's process-oriented churches. So this is what a systems map looks like that have produced all these systemic issues. Most churches in the world are event-oriented. That is, they may have events, but everybody has events. But some churches are event-oriented, like it all is about Sunday morning. That's our whole brand, everything that happens on Sunday. And it goes from one event to another, a men's event, a women's event. And so a typical event-oriented system looks like this. Follow me. I need your brain right now for the next few moments. Far right side, the attendance size is going down typically in an event-oriented church. It's constantly going down. That's why there's a little negative sign there. As a result, the giving's going down. Less people, less money, makes sense. As a result, youth investment's going down. One of the first things they say is, well, those youth, they don't pay tithes anyways, and so give them the mop closet. As a result, youth attendance, people leave the church. We're going to go to a church that really believes in our young people. And then, of course, you still have Sunday morning services, and many times Sunday morning services are event-oriented. Hey, come to our series, come back for this reason, that reason. All those can be really good, but again, event-oriented is a lot different. Like your whole success is all about what happens on that morning. And so it really challenges us to think, what is our paradigm of church? And we'll talk more about that later. And so watch this. Content designed to attract. Come back, come back, come back. People stop even hearing those words. Invite a friend, invite a friend, invite a friend. Now, I'm not saying we need content designed to repel people. We don't want to do that. But at the same time, we want to be careful that we're not just competing with ourselves all the time. Watch this. Engagement's low. There's a negative sign there. That is, people might be sitting there in the seat, but they're not really reading their Bible. They're not really being discipled. They're not growing like crazy. They're like, you should be happy I'm even here. I could be watching in my pajamas at home. And so they're not very deep, and they don't want to be challenged. And watch this. The average age of the church is getting a little bit older. See that plus sign? It's getting a little bit older, and it's a red dot because it's a negative trend. And the reason it happens unnoticed because we usually don't measure this. Remember those churches in Korea, 10,000 closed because everybody got old and died in those churches. And so, watch this. It keeps going around and around. We're all doing work. We all have departments. We all have events to get ready for, services to get ready for. But we don't notice that this is bad because this outer loop, they call it a balancing loop. Oh, there's special Christmas services, Easter services, things like that. And people are, added to. They come to Christ. There's a little bit, there's an addition or a plus sign there. So maybe we grew 3%. Or 5%. Wow, that's great. They're high-fiving each other. Isn't that great? Look at we're growing. Meanwhile, it's getting older and older. This is getting redder and redder. The average age is getting older. It's like having a cancer that you didn't know. You had it for a long time, and it keeps growing and growing until it's too late. But we're high-fiving ourselves. What? We grew 5%, even 10%. That's good. We added campuses. Getting older and older and older. High-fiving ourselves while we're slowly dying. This has produced these systemic problems we've talked about, especially the grand challenge of our time. That is, we're dying off. The churches are getting smaller around the world, getting older as a result. They're getting smaller. If you want to unpack this a little bit more, you can see, if you want to get real serious, is what's happened in youth ministry in the last 50 years that's produced this. Now you'll see there's some systemic things we've done in youth ministry because it's the only thing we knew to do, right? It's just what we were handed. This is the strategy we were having. So most youth ministry systems look like this, focused on church youth, trying to reach the kids whose parents go to the church because that's why parents tithe, right? That's why I give you money. So you have a program, a Christian program for my kids, like a Christian activity club or Christian Boy Scouts or something. There's a 10% rule, maybe you've heard about. It says something like this. Whatever attendance you have on Sunday morning, of adults and everybody, if 10% of that is in your weekly youth group, you're probably reaching all the kids who belong to the parents in your church. You have less than that, you're not even reaching all those kids. You have more than that, you're reaching outside. However, we did the research and found out that that's totally made up. No one's ever done a study. It's never been proven. Most churches are about 4%. So we're not even meeting the fake standard of the fake study that we've all been comparing ourselves for the last 40 or 50 years. So what do? We have this idea. Well, I know. Let's get the cool kids saved, 16, 17, and the captain of the ball team or whatever, and then they'll influence the younger kids. We've been trying that for like 40 or 50 years. That hasn't worked. We're chasing kids who don't want to get caught. They're 16, 17, they're driving, they're drinking a little bit, they're fooling around with their girlfriend or boyfriend. They don't want to get caught. Youth pastor's juggling, please come back, please come back. He's setting himself on fire, he's shaving his hair, trying to do all these antics just to get kids in the building, right? And we're trying to chase kids who don't want to get caught. As we've already learned, 13-year-olds want to get caught. We'll learn more about that. So our goal is just get them in the building and get them to the event, get them to camp, get them to the conference, just get them there, and then God will do his thing. Is that really all we want? We've been settling for that, and like once or twice a year, we get all these kids show up and we go, look, we had a big conference or a camp or whatever, a big youth night. Is that really what we're settling for? And as a result, we'll hear stories like this. But Johnny came to camp and he was falling away from God. He got so on fire, and everybody rejoices. And then we'll hear those words. And if it was for the sake of one soul, it was all worth it. And I know that sounds very sentimental and nice, and Jesus loves everybody the same. However, if you could use the same effort, the same money, the same sweat, and impacted 5 souls or 10 souls or 100 souls, isn't that being a better steward? We only have so much money, so many breaths, so many minas to give. And so we end up with all these inefficient systems. And the only way we can assuage all the pain and all the work we've all been doing is that we talk about the value of one soul. Yeah, but we're stewards of our time, of our money, and everybody that we ask to volunteer, everybody that we ask to be involved in youth ministry. So shouldn't we make sure that we are using our time and their time and money, any resources we're given, that we're wise stewards of that? So this broken system that we all inherited has produced all these systemic problems. And we know they're kind of there, and some of us haven't even tried to work on them because we just figured that's just the way it is. I don't know if you've ever heard this before. This is a very common phrase. I learned it from one of the guys that was on our board for many years. He was an executive at Procter & Gamble. He said this: every organization is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. Whatever results we're getting right now as a church, as a local church, your church, we're perfectly designed. The system, the plan, the wineskin is perfectly designed to get those results. So right now, the church in America and the church in the world is perfectly designed to get this. The chart we've already seen. So if we keep our same design, this is inevitable. We're perfectly designed to keep getting these results, fewer and fewer of each generation. So if you think about what is our strategy in youth ministry, the next generation ministry, what does it look like? Well, it sort of look like this. If someone said to you, take parts that are 50 years old from various different cars and put them together with duct tape and make one car. They're all from different makes and models. They're all rusted out. And that's the car we're going to take. And actually, that's what I asked AI to do, and this is the car they gave me, right? This is our youth ministry strategy. Well, at least it's a car. We got this curriculum, we got this event over here, we got this new thing over here, I got an idea, and we just kind of botch them all together or pile them on. It's really not a well thought through strategy. And then we'll think, hey, I got a new idea. There's a really cool curriculum, or really cool, and it's like putting new wheels on an old piece of junk jalopy car that's been put together. So when we think about all the young people we're not reaching, partly it's because of the strategy we've all been given. The good news is now we see strategy from remarkable churches all around the world that's really working, that you can apply. We're going to talk about that today. By the time we're done today, you're going to learn those 4 best practices and then start wrestling with how do we implement them. Now, let's talk about the system of a remarkable church. A remarkable church isn't is a process-oriented church. So let's talk about a system of a process-oriented church. The remarkable churches that we studied are all process-oriented. Their processes look a little bit different, but this is the general systemic approach to how they approach reaching and discipling and building their church. So let's start on the same side over here. The attendance size of a process-oriented church is generally going up. You see there's a plus sign. More people are coming. So watch how it's different than the event-oriented church. The giving's up. There's more people, more money. So one of the things we learned is that when you're trying to solve a problem that's a part of a system, you try to figure out where's the most highly leveraged place in the system to interject to change the whole system and solve the problem. What they found is it's right here, youth investment. They spend money, time, effort, energy, because they see that it solves a lot of those other systemic problems. So we'll talk about what that looks like. They infuse it. This is how they change the system right here. It turns into aggressive youth outreach. We'll talk about what that looks like. New followers of Jesus, very committed. An aggressive growth program. Leadership development program for the young people. Watch this. They're released to lead, and more youth are reached. So they build this kind of this reach and disciple, this tornado inside their church. That it's amazing because they're reaching them when they're most likely, and they're taking them on this deep dive of growth and turning them into leaders. So this is what we're going to talk about. This is the 4 best practices. You can create this in your own church. We're seeing churches do it right now here in North America and all around the world. Meanwhile, youth attendance goes up. Of course, you still have Sunday mornings, but they're connected to an overall process, not just standalone events. There's process, content, engagement's higher. You find people more serious. They're in the Word more. They're connected to a process. You start measuring how many of them are attendees versus how many of them are actually in the process of growth. And watch this. The average age of the church starts to get a little bit younger. See, there's a negative sign there because it's getting a little bit younger, It's a green dot because it's a positive trend. We want this. So these churches are measuring regularly what their average age is. In fact, I can usually tell if a church is on the road to becoming remarkable or not if they know their average age. If they say it like I'll have pastors within the first 5 minutes. Yeah, our average age is only such and such, but we're aiming for this. I'm like, okay. What you measure is what gets done. If you don't measure that, it gets older and older. Meanwhile, you don't change everything. Watch this. You have special celebration, Christmas and Easter, concerts. Other people are coming to Christ. You can see the plus sign there, but they're joining a process-oriented church. So I want you to take a few minutes and just think about this, the difference in the systems. So this is kind of behind the curtain. What you're about to see with the 4 best practices builds all this out. But I want you to see the system in advance that solves the problem. So essentially, we have the choice between 2 different strategies. We've got this one we've inherited, and we wonder why the church is getting older and older, and why young people, there's fewer and fewer, and they're not very committed at all. And the opportunity is here, a new strategy. A brand new sports car, highly technical, all the latest breaking stuff. That's what Project 13 is for you. And so, remember, you get a new car like this, you got to learn how to drive it. That's what we're going to talk about the rest of this day. How do you apply it? Who's doing what? How do you implement it? You don't just jump in it and take off. This is the difference between the 2 systemic approaches. One is event-oriented, one is process-oriented. Most churches are event-oriented. You're probably event-oriented. Most churches are, but doesn't mean you leave events. We leverage events so that people get into the process of radical growth in their faith so they can become disciple makers.